Alright, hey, what's up guys? I'm back today with another tutorial. Today, I'm going to be teaching you how I made my particles to text transition video. If you guys haven't seen that, I'll put a link down in the description for you guys to check it out. But for your convenience, I'll go ahead and show it to you right now. This is what we're going to be creating today. I told you guys I was going to do a tutorial on this, so this is what it's going to be over. So it looks pretty professional in my opinion, looks pretty good. So yeah, with that said, let's go and jump into Cinema 4D and get started. Okay, so once we're in Cinema 4D, make sure you're using R13. I want to get that out there first thing, because I have a lot of questions on a lot of my videos about people having a hard time finding certain settings or certain options in their program. That's probably mainly due to two reasons. One, they're using an older version of Cinema 4D, or they're using a different version of that release, so such as like broadcast. There's Cinema 4D R13 studio version, and there's broadcast, and broadcast is like a very limited basic version of the studio. There's a lot of things left out in broadcast, so hopefully that sums up quite a few questions. If you're having any problems, that's probably the issue, if you can't find something. So to follow along this tutorial the best, I recommend you use R13. That way everything's identical, because I am using the standard layout, or the default layout. So anyways, the other thing we're going to be using today is Adobe After Effects CS6. CS5 should be pretty identical, should work, maybe a few previous versions as well. Everything's pretty much the same. So anyways, let's go and get started. So we're going to go up to MoGraph, go to MoText, change the text to whatever we want. So I'm going to use the same phrase or the same word I did in the video that some of you guys may have seen. I'm going to change the font to the same font that I used in the video, which was Bifurc. It's a free download, free font download. Just look it up online, Google it, and if you're interested, it looks pretty sweet. Change the depth from 20 to 80, and then just go to caps over here, go to start, go to fillet cap, and then go to end, go to fillet cap. Change the radius from 5 to 3 on both of these. I apologize if I'm going fast, but this is about my third time having to do this tutorial over, mainly due to technical reasons, and there's a lot to cover here, so I don't want to drag this on too long. Anyways, change the type from n-gons to quadrangles. Check on regular grid, go to the width and change that from 10 to about 5. Go back to the object tab, go to intermediate points, change the adaptive to uniform, and leave the number at about 8 or so. Then we're going to go up to our subdivisions and change that to 8 as well. Alright, so now our text is split up evenly, or the geometry is split up evenly, which is what we need for this animation to come together. This is essential. You need to do this for this to work. And in case you guys didn't catch why we did the caps deal, it basically just adds this nice little bezel on the edge of the text. If that's not what you want, then don't do it, but I think it looks kind of nice, so that's why I've chosen to do that. But anyways, our text is all prepped and ready to go. So we're going to go back up to MoGraph, go to Poly Effects, drag and drop Poly Effects underneath MoText. Make sure it is a child of MoText. So if we take it out and we drag and drop it, you'll see that arrow pointing to the left. It will point down to let you know that it will become a child of this object here. So it is a child of MoText, and we're just going to go to transform, change the X, Y, and Z to 0, and you're going to notice our text is going to disappear for a second. That's because we're going to have to play with the fall off. So go to the fall off tab, change the shape from infinite to linear. Alright, so now you're going to see it here. Let's change the orientation from +Z to -X, and whenever we slide this thing to the right, you'll notice that the text is revealed. Now if you wanted to do something different, you could go +X, and it'll be the exact opposite. So from right to left, it'll reveal the text. -X will be left to right, and which I like that better. So anyways, we could also play with the fall off here, which is pretty self-explanatory. Leave it at 61%, and we're pretty much done there. So go to the Effectors tab, make sure Poly Effects is selected, go to MoGraph, go to Effector, and go to random effector. And that's really going to do a lot for our scene. It's going to really make the geometry look different and a little bit more diverse and dynamic. So if we look at it, play it now, it's got a different look to it. So we're going to change some values in the random effectors parameters. So go to position, and we're just going to play around with the position of these particles real quick. Go to scale so that the scale of the particles is a little bit more dynamic and diverse. So there's going to be smaller bits and then larger bits. And then go to rotation, and this is going to add rotation to individual pieces to make it also look a little bit more random and dynamic. So I'm running through this fairly quickly, but you just want something something like that. And so that's that. So pretty much right now we're pretty much almost done with the animating of this video. Really all there's left to do now is add in some camera angles and render settings, lighting, and so forth. So that's pretty much done. So what we need to do now is basically animate the poly effects. So start it over here to the far left and create a keyframe, and we're gonna change our frame range to about 360 or so. So we have about 360 frames to work with, and once we get to frame, like say 260 or so, it's going to finally reveal the text. So we're going to drag the poly effects all the way over to the right, create another keyframe, and so that means between frame 0 and 260, that's the whole transitioning time for the text to be revealed, as you can see there. So our animation is done. So really all we need to do now is animate our cameras. And I've actually made a couple tutorials on cameras and getting multiple angles in a single render. In case you haven't seen that tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and cover it again now. We're going to go to camera, drop in a camera. We're going to go to the 4 object icon and drop in a stage object. And this is how we get multiple camera angles in a single render without having to render out each camera angle one at a time, because that's very time consuming. So I'm going to play ahead a little bit in this video, and basically just make sure you have your camera activated by clicking this little dot here. It'll light up white to let you know that you're actually looking through the camera's lens. And we're just going to line this up. And actually, before we do that, let's go ahead and get our render settings set up. So go to the Edit Render Settings button, change the width to 1280 and the height to 720 so that this is in HD. Change the frame range to all frames. And the anti-aliasing is basically this, how smooth the edges and the lines on reflections are. And in this animation we're going to be using reflections, so this is important if you want the reflections to look good. By default it's set to geometry. You're probably going to want to change this to best and change the max level to 2x2. The higher these are, the better your and smoother your reflections are going to look, but the longer it will take to render. But for right now that'll be alright. Then we're just going to go to Effect, Ambient Occlusion, and this is going to create our shadows for us. We're not going to be using any GI in this animation, but you're going to see the minimum and maximum samples here. If you're getting a grainy image, such as like grainy shadows and stuff, the simple fix for that is to increase these numbers. So if it was grainy at like 10 and 64, we would change the 2 to like 200. And basically the higher these values, the better your shadows and stuff are going to look. I'm sure some of you have probably encountered that problem if you've messed with Cinema 4D in the past. If not, and you do encounter that problem with this video, this is how to fix it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you will if you encounter the problem. It's very noticeable and it looks kind of cruddy, so just something to be aware of. And I'm going to also change the maximum ray length from 100 to 300 here, and the minimum to about 50 or so. And then we're going to go to Effect, go to Soft Filter, and change the strength from 100 to 40%. And I also added in a watermark. So whenever you do this, you just type in whatever, and then go to Machine Info. That'll display your specs. This will display the polygon count, obviously, which camera's active and whatnot. When we press Render Preview, It'll take a minute because we have ambient occlusion on there and whatnot, but at the very bottom down here you'll see the actual watermark. So this is good if you're uploading to YouTube and you kind of want to protect your work a little bit. You know, if somebody tries to steal your video, they're going to have to crop the video or something to get rid of your name on it. So, you know, I could put my name down here in the bottom left-hand corner, tell me the day I did it, the specs of my machine, the render time, all kinds of stuff. So just kind of neat. I'm going to take that off right now. Don't really need it. Our render settings are done. So that leaves us with setting up the camera. So go to the stage, and we have our first camera, and I'm just going to label this camera 1 to make this a little bit easier to follow. And with the stage selected, we're going to take camera 1 and we're going to drag and drop it into this box here, into the camera field. And we're going to command or control left click to create a keyframe. So that means on frame 0 to frame, let's find a good frame here, to about frame 123, camera 1 is going to be the active camera. At frame 124, we're going to drop in our second camera. So we're going to just drop in camera 2. All right. We're going to go back to our stage, drag and drop camera 2 over camera 1, command or control left click to keyframe that. And at this point in time, we can go ahead and take camera 2 and we can position it where we want it in our scene to get the angle that we want. So if you look off to the left here, you can actually see your other camera in the viewport. I'm going to try to match this up to something pretty similar to what I had in the video. Once again, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but that looks somewhat close. So at this point in time, we're just going to specify how long we want it to remain at this angle. So in this case, I just want it just as soon as the particles get past the render area. So that's frame 155. I may actually move this over a little bit more. Let's go to about frame 162. Go back to the stage. Command or control left click to create a keyframe. And then finally, we're going to drop in camera 3, our third and final camera. And once again, go back to the stage, drop camera 3, skip ahead to frame 163, drop camera 3 over camera 2. You'll notice it turns orangish yellow color. Command or control left click to keyframe that, and we're going to position this camera to a point right about here. So, and we're going to skip ahead. I basically in my video just tried to line it up the best I could in the center. I just kind of eyed it to the rest of the video. Keyframe it so that it stays at this angle the rest of the video. Command or control left click. And now if we play this from the beginning, whenever we play through, it's on camera 1. Now it's on camera 2. And now it's on camera 3. And if we take a look around, if we just turn off the stage for a second and check that off, you can see all the different angles and the cameras that we have placed in our scene in the viewport. Alright, and another thing that you guys may run into is sometimes when you mean to just one second here, move this camera around, the default camera that allows you to rotate and look around in your scene. Sometimes you may actually accidentally forget you're actually looking through a camera that you placed in your scene, and you have it where you want it and you accidentally move it. There's no undo button. There is an undo button, but it doesn't allow you to undo the last position of the camera. So to protect your camera in case so you don't accidentally move it, we're going to right click on it, go to Cinema 4D tags, and go to protection and add a protection tag. This basically locks the camera in its current position. That means if we accidentally try to move it, it won't move. You actually have to click off the camera before you can actually rotate and move around. So something very handy. And I'm just going to put a protection tag on all these just for demonstration purposes. Might help you in the future. But anyways, that is our animation. The whole animation right now, guys, is completely done. So really all we need to do now is create a material for this text and then lighter scene. So let's go and do that right now. We're going to go ahead and double click down here, create a new material. I'm going to change this to a complete white material, go to reflection, change the brightness to 20%, and go to texture, go to Finel, that's that, and go to 20% as well. Then I'm going to click on the shader here, the shader box, go to this key here on the end where it's black, and change this to semi-dark gray, more on the lighter side, and then just close that out, and we're going to drag this material right onto Mo Text. So now that text has that material applied to it. Alright, so we have our animation done, we have our angle set up, we've got our texture done, and we've also got our render settings complete. So all we need to do now is light it. And I actually used HDRI Studio Rig in my video that some of you guys may have watched, or what you saw at the beginning of this tutorial. And I mainly did that for two reasons. One is because it's quicker, it's easier, and less time consuming. And number two, I'm pretty bad at lighting myself, and lighting can be very complex. So HDR Studio Rig makes my life a lot easier. I'm sure that's not what a lot of you guys watching this want to hear, but I may do a tutorial on that in the future. But right now, this is enough to cover as it is, and I don't want to spend too much time on lighting. So I'm just going to use the HDR Studio Pack. It does cost money in case you don't have it. Of course, like usual, there's ways to get pretty much everything for free. But this tutorial, or this channel, is not about that, so I will not cover that. But anyways, I'm just going to drop in the HDR Studio Rig and the seamless floor here. Go to Studios, and I use this studio right here. I'm just going to drag and drop it here into the HDR file. And you have options here, different settings and stuff. I think I dropped the saturation down about negative something like 60% or so. It increased the reflective brightness a little bit. And that was pretty much my lighting. Like I said, lighting can become very complex, very in-depth, very time-consuming, and whatnot. So I really don't have the time to cover that right now. Like I said, I might do that in a future tutorial, kind of go in depth. Really, the best idea, if you're going for a decent-looking render, don't use the default lights in Cinema 4D. It's really hard to achieve without a lot of tweaking and espresso and stuff. So if you can get a hold of some free softboxes, or some other preset lights, unless you really know lighting, it'll make your life a lot easier, make your your renders look a lot better. So like I said, lighting is going to be a tutorial for another day. I apologize that I'm not covering that once again, but anyways, moving on. This is it, guys, with the HDR Studio, the seamless floor in there, our animation setup, our angles done, our render settings done. We're pretty much ready to move into After Effects. I think there's one more thing. Once we go to render settings and go to save, change the format from TIFF to QuickTime Movie or AVI Movie or whatever codec you have on your computer, and then you're just going to type in whatever you want here and click these three dots, choose a location, and then just press save. And whenever you press this middle button here, that's where it's going to be your animation is going to be rendered out to. As you can see, it's already rendering out right now, but I'm not going to be using this. So moving on to After Effects, we will take a look at putting in some flares and whatnot, and finishing up this video. So I will see you guys then. Okay, guys, now that we're in Adobe After Effects CS6, you're probably going to notice if you're using CS6, my layout here is a little bit different from the default standard layout. That's because I changed my workspace from standard to animation, and I've also kind of changed the position of these docks and whatnot. But nevertheless, it's the same basic setup. So hopefully you don't have too much trouble following along. I just went up to File, Import File, and imported my original render that I did, because I didn't want to re-render out what I just showed you guys in Cinema 4D. And once you have your video file in here, you're just going to drag and drop it into a new comp down here. It's going to pop up here. And basically what I did here was I actually didn't do any color grading or any color correction. I just went to Layer, New, Adjustment Layer, and then went to Effect, Video Copilot, and then went to Optical Flares. And it's going to open up go to Render Mode and change that from On Black to Over Original. so that it gets rid of the black background, and then go to options up here, and I went to Pro Presets and then went to the Winter Aurora, and I changed the brightness. I decreased the brightness quite a bit, and also played around with the contrast to make it a little bit darker, and then the saturation to make it look a little bit more vibrant. And then I just pressed OK, and now our two flares are intersecting like so, and that already looks pretty good where it's at, kind of like that. So undo that real quick. You got these little crosshairs where you can move around the position of the flares. And that was pretty much what I did for the video, guys. That bluish pink kind of added a little bit to the video. I thought it looked pretty cool. So that was that. And really all I did at this point was add in a sound effect that I got off of soundsnap.com. I'll probably put a link in the description. It's a site that offers tons of high quality sound effects. They do cost money, but of course there are ways to get it for free. Once again, this channel is not about how to get things for free or pirate things, so I will not be talking about that. Anyways, you guys can go there. I think you can register, and it gives you the option to download like 5 free sounds or something like that. It's free to register. It's free. But yeah, that's pretty much where I get all my sound effects and stuff from. And so that's that. And really all we need to do now is render this out. So we're going to go to File, Export, Add to Render Queue, and where it says Output to, we're going to change this. We're going to rename it to whatever and hit Save. So in this case, it's Particles to Text Transition 1.mov. It's going to be saved to the desktop. And then the output module, don't render this as lossless. I think that's uncompressed, and your file size is going to be really large. And also, if you are using any music or any sound effects or anything, you're going to want to make sure you check on audio output and go to format options and change the audio codec from uncompressed to AAC. This will keep the file size down so it doesn't get so high. If you leave your audio uncompressed, the file size is going to be much larger, and your upload times to YouTube are going to be longer. And then once we have that, you can set your format to QuickTime or AVI or whatever codec you have on your computer. And then video output, make sure that's checked on, of course. Go to format options and change the video codec from animation, in my case, to H.264. And then change the quality to about 90 or 85 or so. That reduces the quality slightly, but really not that noticeably, and keeps your file sizes down pretty significantly. So just keep that in mind. Then just press OK, and then you're just going to press render, and it's going to go and render this out for you, and you guys are good to go. So that is how I made that video, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I do apologize that I couldn't go any farther in depth in lighting and whatnot. Like I said, that's a tutorial for another day, but hopefully you guys have a better understanding how I did this. You can create something cool. You learned something new. I appreciate the time you guys took to watch this. If you made it this far, please leave a like down below. That's how you guys tell me thanks. Also, if you guys have any comments or suggestions for future tutorials, let me know. And once again, thank you for watching this. If you made it this far, really appreciate it. And I will see you guys later. Peace out.